On this episode, I talk about Chinese New Year and what you can do to make site search work for you. This show is for everyone working at the coalface. Digital, business, marketing, social. This is At the Coalface with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hi there everyone, I'm Jason Greenwood, and this is episode 8 of At the Coalface. Today we're going to talk about Chinese New Year, and we're also going to talk about site search. So search on your website. You're probably wondering why I'm talking about Chinese New Year. Well, over the weekend we had a Chinese New Year here in New Zealand, and obviously all around the world, but a day early here in New Zealand because we're a day ahead of the rest of the world, where we get the world's first new day, along obviously with Australia. So this is a monkey, and it's the year of the monkey. So we're celebrating at work today. We're celebrating Chinese New Year since it was held over the weekend. So obviously we didn't get a chance to do much together as a work group. So today we are wearing red to celebrate Chinese New Year. I've got my red vest, and because it's the year of the monkey, we all had to take a monkey in, so I've got my monkey. We're also going to be making Chinese dumplings today at work. Happen to love Chinese dumplings. When I go to Yum Cha, I just basically tell them to leave the dumpling tray next to the table because I really like Chinese dumplings. So anyways, really looking forward to that today. We've got a large contingent of Chinese staff on board, so it's going to be great. We're going to have a little bit of cultural input there, and they're going to teach us how to make dumplings, or try anyway. We'll see how we do, but we'll give it our best shot anyway. Interestingly enough, Chinese New Year in New Zealand has become a pretty big deal. It's become a pretty big holiday. We've got a large and growing contingent of Chinese living in New Zealand, and it's one of our largest immigrant groups. And as a result of that, obviously Chinese New Year's become very popular. And so a lot of Kiwis, a lot of New Zealanders didn't really know a lot about Chinese New Year until we started seeing this groundswell of support within the Chinese community for it. Lantern festivals and all sorts of other things associated with Chinese New Year. So it is exciting to see that I guess cultural shift and awareness of Chinese New Year. I've been aware of it for a very long time because back in the pure play days of my business with flashcards, we sourced a lot of product from China and Asia in general. So Chinese New Year puts a crimp, so to speak, in the traditional Western year, because China and the Chinese-influenced world, Asia and Southeast Asia, tend to shut down. They tend to shut down for weeks, both from a production standpoint, a fulfillment standpoint, and everything else. So you really have to plan around Chinese New Year. If you do anything with import-export, if you do any trade or business with Asia, you'll be very aware of Chinese New Year. And so I've been aware and very sensitive, I guess, to Chinese New Year for well over a decade, 12, 13, 14 years. So, but it's definitely a newer phenomenon in New Zealand in terms of wider recognition. So it's exciting to see people sort of wrapping their head around it. The Asia doesn't typically celebrate Christmas, which is more of a Western holiday associated, obviously, with a religious holiday, etc. So it is interesting to see Chinese New Year take root and to become such a big deal. So that covers off the Chinese New Year part. So now I want to talk a little bit about site search. So specifically site search in relation to e-commerce. So on content-driven sites, so CMS sites that don't have an e-commerce component, site search is still absolutely mission critical in terms of your visitors being able to find what they're looking for, the content that they're looking for when they come to your website. So when a visitor comes to your site, you will have typically 2 or 3 methods of finding content, finding information, finding products, etc., whatever you happen to have on your website. So what we're talking about when we talk about site search, we're talking about searching and scanning. There has to be a system, a tool embedded in your website that indexes the content on your website, whatever that might be, and then allows key search queries to be run against that data and then hopefully present relevant results. Now, it's really, really important to focus on the relevant results bit, because most of us have grown up in a Google world where we expect Google to be giving us perfectly relevant results, almost to the point where we expect Google to read our mind. And so we now have a natural expectation. Google has raised the bar, and we have this natural expectation that website search will be just as good, it will be just as efficient, it will return just as relevant of results, and that it can virtually read our mind. Now, I'm not going to get into areas of personalization and personalized results and all those types of things, which certainly are part and parcel of certain website search systems, so that the site search is tracked against you as an individual. So me as a person, me as Jason. Certain site search functionality and systems and tools can effectively tie my queries on site to my login or my profile, if I'm logged in, if I'm authenticated, such that it starts to tweak and twist and present relevant results to me based on past search queries, past clicks, past purchases, etc. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, because it's a deep rabbit hole, and in fact there are other personalization technologies based on big data and your usage history across the site as a whole that are much better placed to start personalizing your website experience. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm going to speak specifically from a generic site search standpoint, so from a non-authenticated, non-personalized search. It's personalized in the sense that it's contextual, or it can be, and there are several different ways to implement site search. Most e-commerce platforms, I'm going to speak primarily from an e-commerce standpoint now, because site search is so critical to conversion. It's so critical to the search and find process. It's so critical to the navigation process that it is actually one of the most important pieces of functionality that you can have and that you can optimize over time, and it will have one of the biggest impacts on your bottom line as a business. So it's really, really critical that you get site search right. It's really critical that you expend the time, the energy, the resources, the people, the technology, the investment, just across the board. It's really critical that you provide a good site search experience, because data shows, there's been many studies that have been done, and about 50% of your visitors will prefer to search for products via site search, and about 50% of your customers will want to find your products via navigation, that sort of traditional navigation model, combined with faceted navigation and drill downs, etc. So it's really, really critical that you meet that need of that 50% roughly that is going to hit your site, that's going to expect a perfect Google-like site search experience. Now, each and every e-commerce platform has its own site search tools built in, the native tools. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good, some of them can be enhanced and tweaked and optimized, and some of them are very heavily dependent on the product data set that you have and how that product data set is configured, the product attributes applied to those products, and which of those attributes you weight more heavily. Sometimes you can weight some of those product attributes more heavily. Say you're a fashion store and color is an attribute, then you may weight color higher than other product attributes that such as brand or whatever, that you think may be more relevant to your audience, your customer base. What are the things that they really are most likely to be searching for? So all other things being equal, if I'm searching, if I make a query around a color and a brand, what is gonna float to the top of the search results on the search results page. So I can speak directly from experience on several different platforms: Magento, Bigcommerce, SuiteCommerce Advanced, which is part of NetSuite. But one thing, I won't really get into a tremendous amount of detail, I don't think, on any of those platforms. But what I will say is that every platform has its strengths and weaknesses around site search. Bigcommerce leverages a third-party tool across their platform called Elasticsearch. It's very good. It is pretty good at handling unstructured data. When I say unstructured data, I'm talking things that are not common to multiple products, but information that is unique to each product. So we're talking product descriptions, for example, are great example of unstructured data. Product attributes that might be applied to multiple products in your database, that's considered structured data. So you might have color as an attribute, and then you might have red, blue, green, black, for example. Well, red is going to be applied to every red product in your catalog, so there's going to be some commonality there, and that brings structure to your data set. So we've got structured and unstructured data. Some native search tools are great at dealing with unstructured data and prioritizing that. Some are not. Some deal much better with structured data only and presenting that based on an attribute weighted basis. So there's a number of critical things to consider. The other thing that is pretty major, and that a lot of e-commerce managers and business owners don't really think a lot about, is what actually gets indexed by your site search technology. So whether it be native or third party, the vast majority of native search tools do not index two things. They do not typically index your content pages, so your CMS pages. So even e-commerce platforms typically have the ability to have content pages and content blocks. So this might be your info page, your contact us page, your about us page, your shipping information page, all those pages that provide supporting information about you, about your brand, about your site, and how customers should use your site. So this is really important information, and oftentimes someone would come to your site and, for example, want to know about shipping, and maybe they can't find it easily in your navigation structure in your footer, whatever. So they'll type in shipping cost, for example, into site search, as opposed to purely wanting to place queries about your product complement. They want to know about the information about how to transact with you. So that's something to be very conscious of, is that most internal site search tools only index your catalog. So they index your catalog of products. Now that's going to be a problem, and you're going to want to look at ways to circumvent that, or you're going to look at ways to enhance that, whether that be creating product information and embedding certain product information that on every product that talks about things like shipping, then that becomes part of your catalog. So if in your description, or if in one of the attributes around your product, you put in information about your shipping, like in terms of what shipping options are available, for example, around that product, then that becomes part of your structured and unstructured product data that's then available to the search tool. But ideally, what we would rather do, instead of trying to, game the system or game the technology that's available there, is to implement technology that allows both product, structured and unstructured data, as well as content, so CMS pages and blocks, to be indexed. So all of that rich content to be indexed and then presented back to the customer. The other area where internal site search often lacks is indexing of categories, so category names primarily. So if I have once again, going back to fashion, if I have a fashion site and I've got a category of search, navigate by color, and then one of the subcategories is red, and I search for red, then obviously I would really like my search results to show the red category as one of the results. So I've got product data, category data, content data. So those are really the three types of data that we really want to address as part of our site search tool, whether it be internal or whether it be third-party service that we add on or plug into our website. So speaking specifically from a Magento standpoint, Magento Standard Search does not index content, and it does not index categories. It only indexes the product catalog. And even then, the site search is not that great. It doesn't provide fantastic results. It doesn't have any fuzzy logic. It doesn't have any automatic learning that's built into it so that it gets better over time. It doesn't have any artificial intelligence or semantic search. So it doesn't, if you type in burgundy, it doesn't make the assumption that you also might be referring to red. You might also be referring to orange. You might also be referring to other shades of red. So, those are limitations not totally unique to Magento, but I can speak specifically to Magento because I've been dealing with it for so long. So those are some of the key areas that you'll want to look at. Now, one of the things that Magento has that is very good that other platforms often do not have is site search redirects. And so what that means is in the admin panel, you are able to look at your top queries, and you are able to then manually redirect visitors to a specific URL on the site based on that specific query. So if you know, for example, that someone is looking for a specific product, long tail, by name, and you want to land them directly on that product page so that they have 1 or 2 less clicks before they actually get to the product page to reduce friction and hopefully increase your conversion rate, then you can do that. So that's a very powerful tool. So not only does Magento show you what your top queries are, and then you can modify those site search redirects and put those in place specifically for that, whether it be for a product, a category, whatever the case may be. But Google Analytics, which most sites nowadays do have Google Analytics installed, obviously if you've got site search query tracking set up, and I strongly urge you to do that, is to set up the ability for Google Analytics to track all site search queries across your site, because there's a lot of rich data that comes out of site search. So site search can help you in areas of product development, introducing new products that are being searched for but that you don't carry. Top queries can show you where to emphasize merchandising. It can show you where to emphasize which products to perhaps put on discount or incentivize, or to bundle together with other products so that you increase the conversion rate of those complementary products or upsells or cross-sells. So site search data is really, really powerful, and it's really critical to the overall development of your entire business, not just for the search and find process, but it affects and impacts so many other areas of your business. So I would strongly suggest that you install Google Analytics. It's free with your site, or have your developer to do that for you or your partner, and then you start looking at the site search query data once you get that implemented. So you combine that with whatever your platform may provide, and in the case of Magento, for example, or any platform that allows you to do site search redirects in admin, you're going to want to go in there and you're going to want to revisit that every week, maybe at first, then every couple of weeks, and then you can probably drop back to about once a month, really reviewing all those queries, tweaking the pages that someone lands on when they make a specific query to make it the most relevant that you can make it. And so that kind of tailors those search results a little bit. Now, every platform manages site search slightly differently in terms of its native functionality. Bigcommerce allows you to apply specific keyword tags, almost like a keyword cloud, in relation to a specific product. It allows you to weight those keywords, and it allows you to build out that around every single product on your website. It also indexes content, so that's different to Magento in that respect, so that's great. I don't believe it indexes category names. I could be wrong, but just from memory, I don't think it does. So that's one existing weakness there, but it does a pretty good job in terms of site search. On the Magento side, and not just Magento, but other platforms, there are extensions. So there's 2 ways you typically enhance site search on a website. You either use a plugin that's a one-off cost that enhances that site search functionality and brings additional functionality to it. It's either free or a one-off cost, and you plug it in and it just works. It becomes part of the stack. It becomes part of your site. Then you've got third-party search services that add super high-end search technology, and we're talking tools like Endeca, we're talking tools like SLI search, we're talking tools like Celebros search. So we're talking cloud products that plug in typically via the API and an extension that facilitates that connection between the two, that effectively those third-party services take a feed from your website of your product and your content data. They index that, they scramble it all up with their artificial intelligence and all their smarts, and then effectively they take over your search results page, and they either feed those back to your site, or effectively you're seeing a page on their platform at a subdomain off of your core domain. So it might be, in the case of HealthPost, it might be search.healthpost.co.nz. So those are really the 2 ways to enhance site search on your site, whether it's a one-off extension or whether it's a third-party service that you pay for on a subscription basis ongoing. So in the case of Magento, for example, there's a really good product called Sphinx Site Search Ultimate. It's a third-party extension provider. I think it's actually written by Marasfit, but I can't remember exactly which extension provider is. I think it is Marasfit, but Anyway, that is a great first step in enhancing Magento search, because it will index as a one-off cost. You pay for the extension one time and then it's permanently on your site. It will index and present results around content and categories, unlike like I said, your basic Magento search, which just indexes product content. It also has it allows you to weight results, so it allows you to weight attributes as opposed to simply turn attributes on and off for indexing. It and results. It allows you to weight those and put a priority on which product attributes, so your structured data, which one is more important than another, or top to bottom, 10 to 1, for example. And so this allows you to start tailoring your results in a way that your standard Magento search just simply doesn't allow you to do. I won't get into Solar and some of the higher end enterprise level search options within Magento that's native to the platform, because those typically aren't used because they're expensive to implement and they're complex, and there's an additional hosting element involved in that is unpalatable to most merchants. So I'm speaking about the standard Magento search versus Sphinx Site Search Ultimate. It really is a vast improvement on the standard Magento functionality. Once we exhaust, I guess, our the optimization of something like Sphinx Site Search Ultimate or Standard Magento Search or whatever native tool you have in your platform, and I suggest you really do a lot of research on the native functionality and how you can leverage it to its absolute maximum, and then you start tracking your results through Google Analytics based on queries. You know, what's the conversion rate on visitors that use site search versus those that don't. Oftentimes the Google will track, and even your native site search tool will track requeries. So in other words, you know, how many times do they have to research because they didn't get the results that they wanted before they moved on to a product page or a category page. So these types of information can really help you to optimize the site search experience on your website before you start looking for third-party tools which have an additional cost to them. So I'll talk about the final, I guess the final option here. I don't want to be overly long-winded about this, because every site search tool has, you know, you could talk for hours about every one because they have their own unique selling points, and that's why they do what they do. But perhaps the most high-end option, also the most costly, but the one that brings the most value if you have a lot of searches across your site, if you have a lot of customers, if you're doing big enough volume to really warrant that next level site search experience, then you're going to want to be looking at something that's got a little bit of artificial intelligence in it, that learns. It's learning search, so it learns over time and optimizes the search results based on what's clicked, based on you know, a search history versus click history, based on certain queries. All those things you want. You want semantic search, so once again, natural language, the natural way of speaking for your audience, and the natural queries that they would make, and the natural linkages that they would make between their queries and your product set or your information set. So there's a tremendous amount of you know, data analysis that these site search companies do as part of their tools, and that's the value that they bring, is they bring a really high-end site search experience to the table, but you pay for it. And you either pay for it, there's a number of different charging models for site search as well, you know, whether it be impression or results served, whether it be results clicked. There's a number of different pricing models out there, and it does vary by site search provider. Endeca, in my experience, is probably the most expensive. It even has, Endeca has the ability to dynamically alter your navigation based on site searches and queries and results, and structuring that unstructured data in a structured way. So Endeca is probably the most high-end of all the products, but it's also the most expensive. And then you move down from there. SLI is probably the second most expensive. It does have some content creation, does have some landing page creation tools. It has some SEO optimization tools built into it as well, and that adds some value for people. So it does have that that search layer plus an SEO layer really that is valuable. Then we've got Celebros Search, and this is an Israeli site search tool. It was originally developed actually by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, as part of their governmental program to analyze data and to ostensibly to prevent terrorism, etc. So using that natural language big data research, and then they've effectively spun that off, turned it, commercialized it, sold the technology off, and now it's been commercialized and sold out into the market, across primarily e-commerce platforms. So they have a plugin, they have an extension for Magento, and they have an extension for many other platforms as well. So in other words, they can plug their technology into most popular e-commerce platforms today, or at least even if they don't have an extension, then you can usually have some custom development that allows the API of your platform to connect to their API, and then you go from there to give them a data feed and then get the results back onto your site or on a third-party landing page. So those are really in order of functionality. Those are really your big three, Endeca, SLI, and Celebros. They all bring unique things to the table. I would urge you to get demos of these products if you're seriously considering them. Get demos from the vendor of all three. Look at their pricing model very carefully and match that up with your data around the number of queries made across your site in a given month. So start to model out, give this data to those three companies and then model out what adding their functionality to your site is likely to cost you. You can estimate based on their historical performance and maybe some white papers, and of course they're gonna try to paint their product in the best light possible. But if when you want to make a business case around site search and adding site search functionality, really it comes down to one thing, and it comes down to improving conversion. So if across the number of site search queries on your site, based on the average lift these tools are seeing in the marketplace around conversion, if you were to improve the conversion by the amount they say you're going to improve across all of your queries, how much extra money does that bring into the business based on the average order value on the website? And that becomes a really quick back of the napkin measurement of whether the ROI justifies bringing in that site search tool to your website. So if you get sufficient queries, if you expect a sufficient lift in conversion rate, and your average order value is high enough, then you can really quickly work out, am I going to be spending more than the extra revenue I expect to bring in by using this tool, or am I going to bring in more revenue than what I'm spending? And obviously revenue isn't profit, so maybe look at the profitability of that additional revenue. What percentage of that is profit, and does that justify that expenditure on additional site search tools and the additional revenue you expect to bring in, and the extra profit ultimately that you expect to bring in by leveraging that technology. So as an e-commerce manager, as a head of digital, whatever, or as a business owner, or even as a partner trying to sell these technologies into a business, helping them to make that business case is part of your job, really, at the end of the day. And if you can't make a solid business case, then you probably shouldn't be bringing on that tool. Don't snap at the latest shiny thing that looks like it's going to make your website the whiz-bang wow website of the world. Because at the end of the day, it has to be grounded in a solid business case, and you have to put that business layer on top of everything that you do. So look at your data, look at your site search results. My final tip: optimize as best as you can within the native tools. Add one-off cost tools first wherever possible. Optimize the crap out of those, and then as a final, that next level step, then look at third-party site search tools that really take it to the next level and add a whole bunch more functionality other than just site search. Hope you found this useful. Love to hear your feedback on what site search tools you are using, what your experience has been, and has it really helped your business? And any other questions you may have, fire on my way. Thanks a lot.